So welcome, Anne.
Thank you.
And where I like to start is to just take a few breaths and let the ideas go. Let the laundry lists go. As you breathe out, let the agendas go for just a moment. They'll come back. Breathe in and let everything go as you breathe out. And when you feel like you're floating a little bit, as if you're floating on the surface of the water, notice if a starting place comes to you.
Okay. Okay, well, I've really noticed recently that despite the fact that everything is really excellent in my life, I've got a wonderful family. I've got sufficient. I'm not well off, but I've got sufficient. I've got enough to pay the bills. I've got a car. I've got wonderful children. I'm not feeling related to any of it. It doesn't, and I'm looking. I've been single now for 3 years. I've dated a couple of times, literally one date, and I'm really holding myself back. And I really would love to have a relationship. I'm searching for that, and I feel the need for it. Not from a practical point of view, but from like a desire point of view. But I'm really holding back from it. I'm scared.
Well, at some point, I just follow common sense. And if you've gone through the termination of a relationship, starting a relationship brings up the realities, the emotions, the fears, the hurt of the previous relationship, including the termination. I wonder if there's something not quite resolved, not meaning that the relationship shouldn't have ended, but that something's not resolved. I think of it like a wound that's been sewn up and the scar is there, but something's not finished.
Yeah, I've thought recently quite a lot that there's certainly, I've been searching for anger that's still there. And there's certainly that keeps cropping up. And I think I've let go, and I've worked at being very happy for him in his new relationship. And I think I've let go. And then I just have these really quite bitter thoughts come up, quite angry thoughts come up. All about being secure.
Right, but this is not about him.
Mm.
And what this may involve are the hopes you had for the relationship that were dashed.
As immediately felt teary then, like moved by that, and I never wanted it to be this way for me or the children. That there's this schism in the family that they have to go over there one week and over to me the next, and all this. Oh, but you get all this free time but that was never the hope I had for my family. It was always security. I suppose it's a fear of change.
Okay.
Looking after myself, being responsible.
You've mentioned security now 2 times.
Mm.
I just noticed that. Okay. Now, you know me a little bit just from a few conversations. So you know that I have a terrible puckish sense of humor. What were you imagining? You gotta do a little laughter here. Let's have a little humor. What did you imagine would happen?
I imagined that we would get married, everything would be wonderful, and we'd be old age pensioners playing with our grandchildren, and we'd have fun, and we'd occasionally go on holiday, and we'd go for walks in the country and have 2.2 children and 2.2 dogs, you know.
If I shortened that story, it would sound like, and they lived happily ever after.
Ever after, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I would like to kindly draw your attention to Pathworker Lecture 180. And you can look it up later, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Pathworker Lecture 180 is called The Spiritual Meaning of Relationship. And the way I teach it, it's not very popular. And the way I teach it, the way I understand it, is the lecture says the purpose of relationship is not living happily ever after. The purpose of relationship is not having fun or having pleasure. Notice I'm saying the purpose, not the side effects.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of relationship, intimate relationship with one other person, is to grow.
I get that. I agree.
So if I cut to the chase here, my guess would be that you have not extracted the lesson from the relationship yet. In other words, I presume that people come to me for help because they're attuned with pathwork.
Yeah.
And so I look for reasons within pathwork why they're not happy. And so I use this phrasing. And I'm explaining a little bit because there are 10,000 ways to explain what I just said. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to rely on the words in the specific materials.
Yes.
Now, I do use other sources that help me explain it more easily. And there's a metaphor in a book that I treasure. And the book is by Daphne Rose Kingma. It's called Coming Apart. And this is how she explains it. She says that when we go into relationship, we go in because there's a present for us somewhere. In this relationship, we're going to receive something. And we have presence, and the other person comes into relationship with us because they want what we have to offer. And so we go into relationship and we're all giddy and bubbly and happy because we're exchanging presence several times a day. Observations, insights, knowledge, joy, fun, pleasure. We're expanding each other's horizons, filling in gaps. And then it slows down, just like the Pathworker Lecture 44 talks about love, sex, and eros. After the period of eros, we settle down into love, the honeymoon's over, and we settle down to the business of relationship. And the presents slow down, but they're still there. And some of them get unwrapped slowly, very slowly, over decades. And what keeps us in relationship, in this metaphor, what keeps us in relationship is our love of what that person can bring that will help us grow. And this is where the two points of view merge. Now, what I am trying to bring here is a more lighthearted way of saying there's a present that was in this relationship that you never got to open.
Okay.
So depending on your culture, under the Christmas tree in the back somewhere is the present you really wanted. And you're sitting there with all the wrappings and all the debris saying, I went through all that and I didn't get what I wanted. So my invitation to you is let's find the present. That this relationship was destined to give you. Your instinct was it was there, but you never quite finished unwrapping it, or you unwrapped it and you didn't recognize it.
Okay. I know one thing about myself is I don't always value what I've got when I've got it. So this idea that I unwrapped it and then it wasn't what I wanted, or I didn't recognize it, really resonates with me. That living always in the future. Oh yeah, I've got that. Put that aside. I not always sat with things and just going, yeah, this is absolutely great. I haven't appreciated, valued what is there. I did. Certainly, I recognised in myself in the relationship, I was a complainer and a blamer.
Okay.
I have cleared that up. I've thought I've cleared that up. Spoken quite openly about it. And I really feel like I've gone well beyond that. It's almost like there's this residue left of lack of gratitude, I think, being grateful.
So let me play with these words. You're not grateful yet because you haven't received it yet.
Okay.
Now, I take people at their word, which is why I take notes.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned safety twice. I wonder if the relationship gave you a sense of safety, but you haven't been able to use it yet. So the first question is, what is safety? And then, how do we use it? So safety is not living happily ever after.
Okay.
Safety can very often be having developed a sense of self-reliance. So I'll tell you a little story. I was married, not now, but I was, and he was very mechanical. And the first time I encountered a problem in the household, I was very young, and I was very sheltered in terms of mechanical things. The first time there was a problem in the house, and I said the equivalent of, honey, will you fix this? He handed me a screwdriver. And I said, what am I supposed to do with this? And he supervised me as I fixed and adjusted the thing that wasn't working properly. That didn't look loving to me. I thought the men were supposed to fix these things. This is very long ago. Fast forward 45 years, and I can fix almost anything.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't the only time he did that. And one of the gifts from that extended marriage was that I learned that things can be fixed. And a lot of things can be fixed by amateurs. with intention. Okay. And if you give me any kind of a problem, I will look at whether or not perhaps I can handle it. There is a level of security in the world, I feel, because I have a toolbox and I know how to use it.
Mm.
Okay. Doesn't mean you won't make mistakes, but I've made a lot of mistakes, so I even have experience, part of my toolbox.
Mm.
What did the marriage give you in terms of toolbox? Literal and figurative.
Okay. It, funnily enough, it broke down my self-worth during the marriage, but since the marriage has ended, I've seen that I can rebuild myself any way that I want to. I have a level of confidence, genuine confidence, that I never really had even before I was married. It's given me a sense of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to live. I had quite an affluent lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned every day to get up and look after the horses, and I was very focused on that. Taught me how to ride, how to have courage. Actually, I was a bit of a coward, and I became very courageous in that area of my life. And laugh. Oh boy, he really did teach me to laugh. He really did. I used to literally, when I was very stifled, I used to cry with laughter. He used to really have that impact on me. Responsibility for other people. I looked after his sons as well as our own children, and they're a great, massive present for me in my life. I love them very dearly. Oh, so much stuff. It's like having 10 lifetimes in 15 years. Funnily enough, he was a real risk taker, and I am more of a risk taker now. I would always say no first, and then maybe be persuaded to say yes, reluctantly. But now I just go, yeah, let's give that a go. Give it a go. Mm-hmm. So there was that. Well, there's a start for you. I'm sort of...
Okay. So what present were you hoping for that you didn't get? Okay, so pause for a second and breathe. I can hear the emotions. Let the emotions flow. You don't have to answer right away. Keep breathing. These feelings are really important. They'll help you find the answer faster. Don't tamp them down. There you go. Breathe it in and let go. There you go. Breathe in and let go. These are the kinds of things that we hold in, and they need to breathe. you go.
I thought I'd found the one who would never leave. And I suppose the present I thought was going to be there that I didn't get was that I'd have someone always there for me. I could always turn to, no matter how right or wrong or silly or horrible or nasty or mean, that I'd always be there. I just gave my heart completely to it, and then I took it back.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this big, if you really love me, you would, no matter how I was behaving, no matter who I was, you would always, you'd be there no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I could behave in any way, and it wouldn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that he would be the one that would always love me. Mm-hmm. Forever and ever and ever. Straight back to, and they lived happily ever after.
Mm-hmm. So again, just breathe that in for a moment. I know you recognize that there's a childish element to that, but there's also a grain of truth. We're going to work with the grain of truth. We're not going to mock the wanting to live happily ever after. Okay? Everybody dreams that.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
So the world isn't perfect, such as I didn't turn off my phone. Whoops. The world isn't perfect. Okay. Okay. So in each session, we touch on things that you will be able to work with later.
Yeah.
I can't take everything apart down to the bone, put it back together in an hour or so. Mm-hmm. But what I hear is two things. One is there's probably some stuff about your childhood, because children feel the same way. Children want perfect parents. And I don't know anybody who got the perfect parents. Okay. And that is part of the design, from a spiritual standpoint, that's part of the design of being a human being. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to help you put yourself in context.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a plan here. That's what all spiritual philosophies, all religions espouse, promote, believe. Mm. There's a plan here. And the New Age philosophies tend to not divide into simplistic, please excuse any prejudice there. They don't divide it just into heaven and hell and us in the middle. Okay, it's more holistic. That's where the word comes from. It's all mixed up. So part of the plan involves the human psyche, rather than the dog psyche or the parrot psyche or the Martian psyche. Okay?
Yeah.
So when we work with the human psyche, everybody has similar expectations and hopes and dreams. And everybody gets disappointed in some way in their life. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's from that point that the individuality, the unique qualities that we have, go in different directions.
I understand that.
Okay.
Yeah, I get that.
So there's a way in which your expectations were particularly thwarted as a child, a way where you were disappointed in not being parented perfectly. And what we do, and this is partly referencing Pathworker Lecture 73, which is what we didn't get as children, what frustrated and thwarted us as children, we take in our adult lives into other relationships, especially our intimate relationships, but even our friendships, our employment relationships, everywhere. Okay? So there was some need for security or validation or feeling safe that you had as a child that wasn't met by your parents. So you moved this into the adult relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, we're not going to go there, but the origin of this need goes back to you as a spirit. The parents are substitutes for your relationship with God.
I get that.
Your husband is a substitute for your relationship with God, where you may want God to take care of you. And in a funny way, she has. Because it seems to me that you are at the cusp of realizing that everything you need is already in you. You've made a long list here of how you already had the courage, you already had the capacity, you already had the ability to risk, you already had the willingness to take, you had all these things, but they hadn't been brought out gently and lovingly. You see, if we have a quality and somebody tries to rip it out of us, that doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like we're doing it. It feels like somebody's stealing something from us or forcing us. But when we're invited to use our capabilities to build a wonderful life, and we start pulling out wonderful gifts and wonderful talents, and oh yes, here and there's this. Oh, I could do this. I could do that. And it's fun. So, my premise would be that somewhere within you is the one who will never leave. And you're trying to find an external validation of that. And the imperfection of human beings is that that may never manifest in that way. And if it did, it would be false, because people die. Even if you find the guy,
Yeah.
they could die. But what if you found the part of you that will never leave? Then you can die, but you die with it.
Search. That's the search. It is, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So think for a moment what that part would look like.
like a big oak tree,
Mm.
solid, moves with the wind,
Mm-hmm.
deep-rooted.
Where are you like that?
Where am I like that?
Mm-hmm.
My love for my kids, my love for God actually is like that.
Mm-hmm. So why can't you just have a human relationship with another lovely person who will share your life as you continue to grow roots into the ground and branches into the sky and leaves for the wind to shake?
It sounds really weird, but I have this fear that they're going to expect too much more of me.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, really don't want to hurt anyone again.
Okay. I'm going to translate this instantaneously into God. We're right there. This is the God image.
Mm.
If you get big and strong and God sees you, he's going to expect more. Now, that's what happened to you as a child. Can you feel it?
I feel very emotional,
Mm-hmm.
very moved. Um,
So just breathe with that for a moment. Just, you don't have to put words to it. Just take a moment, breathe in and release. Don't stomp on the feelings. Don't worry about them. Breathe in. Let them live, these feelings. What I'm hearing is something that happens to all children to some extent. Some children are wounded by it permanently and some are not. Okay? That we expand into a great state of being, and our parents say, great, now let's have some more. But that's not who we are. That's just us in our most expanded state. And then we need to contract and expand and contract. But we get to the point of expansion, somebody says, stay right there, I like that, don't ever change. It's like stopping breathing. How long can you do that? You collapse and then it feels like you disappoint someone. But the person you disappointed was human. And the hope is that God is better than human. It's unfortunate that in the English we use pronouns. We can't say it. It sounds a little impersonal, but let's use an it. Okay. God isn't human. He's better than that. He's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. It's wiser than that. It's more loving than that. It knows more than a parent who's 25, 30, 35 years old. That's not what we call an elder in human communities. And yet these young, inexperienced people are raising children. That's the system.
I was one.
Mm-hmm. So was I.
Having done the
You,
pathwork.
you got to give credit to positive intent because, oh, I was not wise. I was loving, but not wise. But again, God is not human. Thank heavens. Pardon the pun. And God would not be so foolish as to not know when you were in expansion and you needed a rest. In theory, God invented expansion and invented rest. He knows the system.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Creation and then on the seventh day.
Yeah, isn't it funny? We give God credit for building everything but not understanding us. Huh? And the reason is we anthropomorphize God. We turn him into a big human being so that we can wrap our puny little head around that concept. We diminish God to make him easier for us to understand.
When I approach thinking about understanding God and in my life, it's almost like my brain shuts down and goes, no, just deal with the physical. It's much easier.
Good. Allow that would be natural. If you try to understand God and your brain shuts down, your brain understands the problem. It doesn't want to blow any circuits. Your brain's very smart. See if you can do it with your heart.
It's just such peace when I think of God with my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very safe with you.
And how long will he be there?
In that place of safety until the next distraction in the physical world.
That's where you will be.
Yeah.
Notice the difference. Your head will focus elsewhere. Where will God be?
Just there, always.
Mm-hmm. You see, that's where you're confused. Have you ever had let me think. You know those little thingies in your eye in the mornings, those little trailing things that you notice in your vision on occasion?
Yes, yeah.
And you try to look for them, and they're always moving faster than you can see.
Yeah.
That's because they're in the aqueous humor of your eyeball. They're actually floating in the liquid inside your eye. So when your eye turns, their relative position turns. It's like having dirt on a headlight. And as the headlight turns, the dirt turns.
Yeah.
Okay? That is our human experience, but that's not God. Your attention goes elsewhere. You are distracted. That's kind of your problem. God didn't get distracted. God's right where it was before and will be afterwards.
I find it so puzzling and like an itch in my brain as to why God sees us all as individuals and loves us all so absolutely, devoutly and completely. And how that happens. It's like an itch of disbelief.
What if God is just bigger? Do you love
Yeah.
all your children?
Yeah.
How can
Yeah.
you do that? How can you love more than one at a time? How can you do that? A little bit of God in you, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
love my
if,
kids.
if God was bigger and had a bigger family,
But I don't know what they're doing all the time. Not like he does.
well, imagine that the he that you're using now, and let's go ahead and do that, it's normal. The he that you're using now is simply a big blow up version of a human being, but that's not who God is.
No, it's not. I know that. I'm absolutely with that. It's because that brain of mine is trying to make sense of something which is beyond my understanding.
Exactly. Just allow that.
It's okay.
It's not only okay, it is.
It is.
Okay? You don't have wings, you're not a bird. But you can have some comprehension, some imagination, some creative feeling about flying.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not God, but you can sense into momentary feelings of what being God must include. You can visit.
Yeah.
Mhm. And this is the connection that once you develop it, will always be there for you. This is what your parents were a substitute process for, what your relationships were a substitute process for. Even our children are a substitute process for learning how big the heart can be. I did not want to be a parent. My husband wanted children, and I dreaded it. I was 20, and I didn't think I would be a very good mother. And I didn't see why I would subject children to a poor mother. I hadn't had great mothering, and I didn't know how to model mothering. But I learned. I got pretty good at it. Not perfect, pretty good. But I was dragged into the experience very unwillingly and learned.
Oh my goodness.
And then expanded from learning children to employees in business situations to loving clients. And I practiced loving everyone. It's really hard. Some days it doesn't work, especially people specifically. It doesn't work. But it's part of what I term my spiritual practice. And I am in love with the phrase spiritual practice. You gotta practice.
Yeah. Gotta keep on practicing.
Mm-hmm.
That sharing has just really highlighted the present that I haven't recognized from my marriage.
Yeah.
It was my family.
Mm.
I didn't recognize what a wonderful gift that was. I got to stay at home even though I wanted a career,
Mm-hmm.
because it always seemed really wrong to me that I was the one who had to stay at home because I'd never earn as much as he would.
Mm-hmm.
And I focused on that, and actually, look what I got. I got to spend all that time with my kids. It's sort of hiding in plain sight as well, because one of my things I've always said was about bringing up my family is that I never missed a children's gala or a fete or a parents' evening unless I chose to. No one's, it was.
You know what I'm hearing? You gave your children what your heart desired. You gave your children a parent who was always there.
Can you say that last bit again? I'm sorry, I missed it.
You gave your children your heart's desire. You were always there.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, that's a lovely present
Mm-hmm.
because my ex-husband had to work very hard to give that ability to me.
Mm-hmm. And you gave it, you gave that experience to your children.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. And continue to do so.
Mm-hmm. Because once they're on sound footing, once they believe that the intent is there, children really don't mind an absence or two. But the raising of children involves giving them the feeling that there's an intent, a positive intent. They're very forgiving of the occasional missteps. But when the positive intent is not there, the missteps become a reminder that the whole thing is flawed. Now, each person interprets life differently, so my wounding about what is fundamentally flawed is different from your version, which is different from your children's version. But it sounds like they're not going to be wounded by a lack of positive intent of the parent's love. And depending on how you present this to them, they will translate your presence to their father's absence in supporting your presence. Children aren't stupid. And so your children may grow up with a wonderful gift of feeling supported and loved, and that their parents honored them by giving them great basic coverage of needs. People poo-poo that, but kids are inherently clever and smart. And
Just as we were. Yeah.
they know when something was missing. They may not be able to name it, but they know it's missing. And you've created a foundation for your kids to grow from. Now, they'll grow with their own woundings. It's a soul process. They won't be perfect. But you've turned your wounding, this wounding about the feeling that there's nobody there for you, into a gift that you even were able to give away. Because once you have it, you can give it infinitely, because it's not a thing. It's not like waxed paper where you run out one day.
The more you give it, the better you feel.
Mm-hmm. The more you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like my brain's gone empty.
It's okay. My energetic sense is that we've completed the work we need to do for this session. Okay. But every once in a while, there's leftovers. So I listen in case there's just any little loose ends that might need to be addressed. Let your mind be blank. We'll glide for a little while, and if there's nothing that comes up, we'll stop.
I have a lovely sense of appreciation, actually, for the years of my marriage. I can't even say I've really got a lingering sense of I wish it would go on. I had gone on either. It's just that it was what it was, and it was as it was meant to be.
Mm-hmm. It may not stay that way. Things don't stay perfectly neat and tidy. I think of it like hair. You get your hair cut, looks great,
Yeah.
and eventually it starts to stick out, and some maintenance may be required.
Yeah.
Okay. Allow that's a process. Do the maintenance. And it does sound like we're done.
It does.
Well, thank you for the session. That was fun. That was great. It was a thrill. But I also want to thank you before I turn off the recording for allowing me to record this. It's a great gift. I'm very, very appreciative for your bravery and courage in allowing this process to be witnessed by others. I'll turn the recording off now.